Thank you for joining us on a weekday. I am just running a bit of a sound check. Am I audible to all of you? If yes, please use your chat box to let me know. Thank you. Thank you so much, all of you, for replying to me. Before we begin today's session, I wanted to just give a brief introduction of our speaker and what we're going to talk about today. To begin with, I'd also like to definitely introduce Jamboree Education, our company. So what we do at Jamboree is we train students for exams such as the GMAT, GRE, SAT, TOEFL and IELTS. And we also train students on preparing applications to business schools, to master's programs, to undergraduate programs, to PhD programs. So we offer a comprehensive test prep and admissions counseling service. We're one of the oldest institutes in India that trains people in this regard. And we have global presence. We're in 39 centers in 22 cities world over. Okay, so that's a little bit about us. I'm going to host this session today. My name is Vaishali Madhavan. I work with Jamboree in the admissions counseling department. And I would like all of you to extend a very warm welcome to our speaker, Mr. Gautam, today. Gautam is the co-director at Great Lakes. He's the admissions co-director there. And what he is going to educate all of you on is, the question that almost every B school applicant has. What does a school look for? All of us have heard things like quality of work experience, extracurriculars, profile, but at the end of the day, what are the tangibles that a business school looks for? What makes your profile outstanding? How do you make your application stand out? How do you showcase soft skills like leadership ability, the ability to collaborate, etc. in your application? Okay. So without further delay, I'll hand over to Mr. Gautam and he can take you all through this session today. A quick request for all of you. We want to devote a lot of time to your question and answers because we realize that you will be having profile-specific questions. Please use the Q&A box to type out your questions so we can curate them and Mr. Gautam can answer them for you at the end of the session. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Vaishali, for the quick introduction. So a very good evening to all of you. My name is Gautam Lakhamraju, and as Vaishali mentioned, I had admissions and marketing for Great Lakes. To just give you a quick introduction beyond what I do currently, I have been to a business school as well. So I did my engineering and then I went to MDI Gurgaon class of 2005-07. And then I went into consulting for 3 years. I was in management consulting in the energy industry. And subsequently, since 2010, I've been involved in business school admissions and marketing, right? So I've been associated with Great Lakes for 10 years now. Would have interviewed about a few thousand students, a couple of hundred maybe every year. So that's just to give you a background. And I think we are doing this webinar at this point of time, and I thank Jamboree for giving the opportunity. Right, we are doing it now because I think it is actually more useful now, where you have the time with you to maybe work on some of the things that make your application stronger. What I have typically seen is that first students focus on the exam, and that happened to me as well. At that point, at least I was focused on the domestic institution, so I gave GAT, and I was focused on getting into the top 1 percentile. So till the exam, that's what you're focused on, right? And then once you get the result, that's when you shift to the interview preparation. While that may work at a level where you are just a fresh graduate, it won't work where you are having experience and you need to showcase your track record, where you need to showcase a very diverse set of things rather than just your test score and ACATs, right? Those are just numbers, so there's nothing really to work on beyond getting good scores. But if you have to show a 360-degree perspective, there are things that you need to work on. So this session would just hopefully help you understand the perspective from the other side, from the admissions perspective, so that you can then maybe possibly work on areas that you may either think that you're not so strong on, or sharpen those let's say USPs that you have, right? And how to weave a great story in terms of why you make a great candidate for the top business schools, right? So that's the context. And as Vaishali also said, I want to make it more interactive, and so the presentation will be short, maybe about 20 minutes, and subsequently we can have an open Q&A session. So before we get to the topic, I just want to quickly introduce the institution that I represent. While there are many ways in which you can talk about institutions, how many years old they are, what is the size of the campus, all of that. But I think at Great Lakes, I think we are a fairly young institution, about 17 years old now. As institutions go, that's quite young. But what we really are proud of, and what I think is borne out by whatever we have done so far, is that we are extremely innovative, agile, and future focused. Unlike most institutions which are typically slow to move and stuck in the past, if you see India's premier universities like a Delhi University, maybe they revise their curriculum maybe once in a decade or two. At Great Lakes, that happens every single year. Right, every single year there are new courses introduced, some old, some courses discarded, and it's completely being responsive to not just students, but more importantly, industry. The industry is the end customer for any business school, and so it's important that what you learn now should be useful to you at least in the next 5 years. Right, some things may be useful lifelong, but there are certain areas which you may be able to use immediately, and be one of those who can help companies drive and adopt new areas which impact businesses. So just to give you some examples, we are one of the first business schools to introduce a 1-year
Mr. Gautam will just be on. I believe he's having a bit of a technical glitch. He'll just be on ASAP. Yeah, he'll just be on. He's having a bit of a technical glitch. Yeah, he'll just be joining us in a couple of minutes. Thank you so much for your patience.
Hello.
Yeah, yes, Gautam, sir.
Vaishali, am I audible?
Yeah, you are. Thank you
Yeah,
for.
I'm really sorry. It's monsoon season here down in the south, and had a power cut, and then my secondary backup also was not working. So my apologies for that. So to continue from where I left, in Great Lakes, we have one of the unique, differentiators for an Indian business school, which is having a global faculty model. Not too many Indian schools have that. I think most of the time you have very inward-looking campuses. At least that's been my experience at most Indian schools. That you have large campuses, you have faculty staying inside, everybody is inside, and it's a very theoretical kind of whereas at Great Lakes we really look at
Mr. Gautam, try switching off your camera. That might help. We're not able to hear you properly.
Analytics as an MBA specialization way back in 2013. At that point of time, the common, in fact, industry actually started adopting it. In business schools, definitely it was not even something that was discussed then. And now Great Lakes is pretty much considered the top school in this particular area, right? We have a lot of programs offered through our executive education, Great Lakes Executive Education, right? And together with Great Learning, and it has become the top ranked analytics program in the country. So we have two campuses. One is in Chennai. That's our first campus. It's on the scenic East Coast Road. It's a LEED Platinum rated green campus, first of its kind in South Asia. And in 2010, we set up our Gurgaon campus. Again, the idea was that we are close to the industry and the kind of diversity of industry that's there in Gurgaon and NCR. That's a significant advantage that we have it here. I spoke about Great Lakes having a global orientation with a global faculty model. I think that comes from our roots, right? Great Lakes was set up by Dr. Balavi Palachandran. He's a Padma Shri awardee, and he has been a professor at Kellogg School of Management for almost 40 years. He is one of the first well-known Indian origin faculty in US in management area. And now you see that a lot of people are Indians, actually Indian origin people are actually heading business schools from Harvard to you have in Booth, Kellogg, and multiple schools. Cornell, you had Indian faculty heading either the business schools or the universities. So Dr. Bala that way was a trailblazer. Mohan is also a vice chairman and CEO of Great Lakes, but he's also founder and CEO of Great Learning. which has become one of the most successful edtech startups in the country. Our current dean, Dr. Suresh Ramanathan, came back from US to join Great Lakes as the second dean. He was prior to that at Texas A&M and Chicago Booth. And Dr. Sudhakar Balchandran, who teaches every year, is a member of our board. He's also academic director at University of Illinois and is a PhD from Harvard Business School. So this is a kind of leadership that you have from where a lot of the ideas flow, and the kind of network that we have is based on the key leadership team that we have. So in a span of about, as I said, about 16, 17 years, Great Lakes has done fairly well, because academic institutions take a very long time to earn recognition. So to have done that in a short period of time, I think the credit would go to the fact that we have been innovative, because there is no other way can a new school, young school, overcome the incumbency without innovating and doing something different. We are also helped by some international collaborations that we have, which allow us to leverage the resources and do things jointly. We have very recently signed MOUs with two of the world's leading universities and business schools. We just recently joined hands with the Chicago Booth, which is many years ranked 1 in the world, to offer executive education programs for Indian corporates. We have also just partnered with Cornell University to potentially open up, immersion program opportunities at Cornell for our students. With University of Bordeaux in France, we have a program where students spend 1 additional term after completion of their program at Great Lakes, and they also get a MBA degree from University of Bordeaux. So schema again allows, in France, allows exchange programs and so on. So you have something where the program is in India, but it's globally benchmarked. It has global faculty, and you have opportunities to engage with international schools. As a young school, we were also helped with support of a lot of people in the industry. Some of the doyens of India Inc., starting from Dr. Ratan Tata himself, have been part of our advisory council, participated in many activities and sessions at Great Lakes itself. That also brings in that sharp focus onto the industry requirements, having people give their perspectives on what the future would look like and what a business school should be doing. Similarly, on the academic side, as I said, we have a very strong international network, and the Academic Advisory Council symbolizes that. We have the who's who again of management thought leaders, starting from no other than Dr. Philip Kotler. He has been at Great Lakes multiple times. Dr. Srinu Srinivasan teaches every year. He's been the chairman of the marketing department at Stanford. Dr. Ashwath Damodaran took session last year and this year as well as a guest session as part of our initial induction program. So that's Sorry again for the interruption. So we'll carry on. We have two programs at Great Lakes. One is for experienced cohort with at least 2 years of experience, but it can go up to about typically up to 7-8 years experience, right? And we also have one full-time 2-year, program, the kind of programs which have been the standard since a few decades in India, the Pgdm program, and here we take freshers and people up to 2 years experience. It's a young program, but it has done exceedingly well, and we have, now a very high quality batch in the 2-year Pgdm as well. So coming to the topic today, I think this is what you are here for. So I tried to map out, some of the key areas, right, in terms of what we look for. Right now, this may differ from business school to business school. Each school may have a different emphasis, right? But I think all of us are looking for certain skills, baseline skills. One is problem-solving skills. That's something that we look for, and that's what managers are required to do. They are required to solve problems on a day-to-day basis. We are looking for your consistency in track record, your past academic performance is an indicator, and we're also looking at your aptitude. We are looking at your, those of you who have experience, we are looking at your track record, because that is a proof of your future. That's not a however, you are going to look at past performance, right? Now we'll come to, maybe I'll come to this in the Q&A, where, some of you may have questions on this, on, if you don't have something great in your past track record, how will you, then present yourself? So we'll talk about it. Obviously, one of the first things that people gauge during the interview process is your communication skills. But going beyond that, as part of the soft skills, we want to see leadership and people skills as well. We want to see your emotional intelligence. How would you deal with different situations, right? How considerate you are for others, because that's an important thing in terms of being able to lead and being able to actually solve problems through a win-win kind of approach versus, taking a confrontational approach, which rarely works. And finally, we want you to have certain amount of awareness. You need to be clued into what's happening in the world, because let's be clear that business education is not theoretical learning, right? Nothing about business learning, post-business school, work is applying theoretical concepts, right? Things don't come packaged in the real world, right? Maybe engineering problems are defined, science problems are defined, but in business, there is a significant amount of variability because of the factors which are beyond your control, right? You don't control your competitors, you don't control the government policy, you don't control, international affairs, what other governments across the world are doing. So a lot of things are not in your control, right? So decision making cannot be theoretical. It's changing every time, and despite the best best brains being in the business, there still would be mistakes. But what's important is that you minimize, right? You minimize the mistakes and maximize the decisions that work, right? And for that, being aware, being well read is important. So there are two kinds of things that you need to read or learn about. One is, right, what's happening in business, right? That's one set of things that you look at, right? That you can do by reading newspapers, magazines on a regular basis. The other aspect is, learning about how to deal with different situations, right? Now that you can learn from your own experiences, but the easier way to do that is, learning from others' experiences. You have so many great biographies. You have great books written by leaders and consultants and academics. So that really would help you to learn from that and have that kind of awareness. So let's say everything is great. You have great academics, great scores, right? You do everything that is prescribed, right? A, B, C, D, you check all the boxes. But still, I think it's very important, and a lot of your interview is going to be about this, right? In fact, before the interview, in terms of your SOP, right? Great Lakes for the Pgdm program has a statement of purpose. Many schools, especially international schools, should have that, right? What we really are looking to understand is, why do we want to really do an MBA? Yes, you're looking at it because it gives you good career prospects, right? Maybe MBAs earn more than non-MBAs, so that's fair enough. That's one point. But it's important for you to realize whether you are going to actually benefit from it. Not everybody is meant to do an MBA, just like not everybody is meant to do one thing, right? Some people may be great artists, they would make bad managers. We have seen that again and again, right? All your rock stars and basketball players to who are, right? Many of them have been great at what they do, but been bad at managing their money, for example, right? So you may or may not be cut out for this. So it's important that when you are investing such a significant amount of time and resources, you understand why you're doing this for, beyond the fact that statistically you may get greater career opportunities. So what are your short and long-term goals, right? Where do you want to see yourself 5-10 years down the line, right? What are your strengths and weaknesses? This is a very critical thing, right? I'm sure most business schools will ask this in some form in the interview process, right? What are you really good at, right? And not just saying that you're good at something, but you should be able to explain in a convincing manner why you think that is the case. So one other thing is, when you explain, it's important for you to be able to put that in perspective. When you state something, it's important for you to give context, for you to give the situation, what you did, right? What were the outcomes, what you learned from it. So you need to be able to articulate in a very convincing manner. So that requires a lot of time and effort, right? For you to note down things, go over it, whether you're convincing, maybe record yourself. So that takes a lot of practice, because somebody who has 30 years of experience, has been through multiple interviews, for him he can talk about this any day, right? But for somebody who's still at the beginning of the career, not necessary that you have thought about all these things, but getting into business school is a good time for you to introspect and figure out your personal qualities, strengths, weaknesses, and just work on them. So just to I have covered some of this, but I think a little more granular level. So I think these are things that I won't spend much time on. These are obvious. So one of the things that people don't highlight well enough is achievements, right? And now many of you would ask questions like, I did something in 10th, 12th, like, is that good enough to put in my CV or as an achievement? Answer is, anything that is credible, that shows that you have, performed against odds, performed at a high level, right? That's something that you can showcase. And achievements need not be something spectacular. You don't have to be like, a gold medalist, or you don't have to be, the best in the country, right? Achievements could be at your work, at at a team level. It can be extracurriculars. It could also be initiatives that you take, maybe working with some NGOs or working on certain projects. right? So it's important to show that you are somebody who takes initiative, right? Somebody who wants to do things, get things done, right? Even if you fail, it's perfectly all right, right? Failure is a stepping stone to success, right? As long as you are clear why you failed, what you got out of it, right? It's as valuable as any success, right? So this is something that people don't highlight enough. So please, again, think about it. What is that you really can showcase? For all what impresses most is a failure of yours. So a few other things you can do now that you have maybe a few months before you get into a business school or even the interview process. One important thing is, take feedback from your mentors, colleagues, friends. While you may have a self idea of who you are and what you are good at and what you're not good at, I think getting a third party perspective, especially from your mentors or superiors, I think that's helpful, right? Apart from that, when somebody advises you, they are investing their time in you, right? So that way it's, they also feel that they should contribute to your growth. So it's a great way to get mentors by asking for feedback, right? And obviously a lot of practice is required. You give the exam, you are not, and then wait till you get an interview call. You will have very little time to practice, right? Especially on your communication skill, that takes a lot of time, right? It's not easy to change what you have gained over, like, let's say 20 years of learning, right? So if you have to change any of those things, you need to practice, and you need at least a few months of that, right? And start reading. I think reading is a critical quality. Take any CEO, and one of the things that you'll find common across CEOs and any leaders would be that they're all voracious readers, most of them, if not all. Even somebody like Elon Musk, right? He's running like 4 companies at the absolute cutting edge, right? Fighting against all odds. And he's still a voracious reader. He has, somebody asked him, like, how did you learn about building rockets, right? And his answer was that, I read books, right? So he doesn't have a background in obviously space tech and all, but he obviously now understands better than most people on the planet, right? More than most theoretical physicists and scientists. So it's important to keep reading, and also learning from mentors and others, right? These are 2 things that may not be something that you do on a typical basis. Even coaching centers may not really talk about that, but these are long-term habits, not just for before MBA, but these are lifelong habits that you can cultivate. And you still have time to take up some initiatives. If you think your CV or application form is still blank, you don't have much to talk about, you still have time. You can always pick up some activities, right? You can at least talk about what you started, right? Even if it's not something that's accomplished, right? So at least you have started on the journey. At Great Lakes, our applications are live for 2022. So you can go to the website, you have all the details, but we have an application based shortlisting. Post that there is at least last year and this year was an online interview process along with an analytical writing test, right? And post that we communicate the acceptance to the program. So that's all from my side. I think now I'd be happy to address the questions. Yeah, so I think there are already some questions. I'll start them. And start with them. And those of you who have more questions, please feel free to type in. The first question is, this is from Abhishek. Can you tell something about top institutions like Harvard and Stanford? How difficult would it be for an IAS officer to get into them? So incidentally, my brother went to Stanford Business School. So I know how hard, or have some idea. So he was in the IIT Bombay Computer Science. So obviously that helps. And but in your case, you are an IAS officer. That's a great starting point. The very fact that you've been among those who are really shortlisted after a very rigorous assessment and something that's extremely prestigious. I think that's a great starting point. I don't think it's difficult. I think it's about how you channelize what you have done so far and why you want to do an MBA at this stage, right? Because you have gained those skills for administration. What have you done with that? Have you practiced? Have you worked as an IAS officer for certain years? And what impact did you have, right? Those are usually the questions that get asked, right? So I think it's important for you to reflect on why you want to do an MBA and what is that you have done so far that makes you want to do that. There's a question on actually UG. I think today's session was more meant for postgraduate education. But yes, if you want to get into business administration at a UG level, I think you have now many programs, including some of the programs offered by IIMs, which have 5-year integrated programs. Or you can take up commerce, liberal arts. I think for undergraduate, it doesn't really matter whether you are, doing an BBA or a BTech. I think these are more foundational. I think what matters is go to a good institution, which has a good culture, which can really nurture your personality, right? So I would say that is far more important at undergraduate level than getting straight away into business and all. There's a follow-up question on what could be the extracurricular activities that can be pursued in an undergraduate business major. I think anything that helps you demonstrate the skills that I discussed, right? Any competitions that you can participate in, right? Whether it's business competitions or otherwise, that shows that you are driven, that shows that you take initiative, that shows that you can compete with the best across the country and perform, right? So all of those are great. Then you can take up any voluntary initiatives, right? Because that allows you to practice. Even working in a NGO means that you are working with limited resources. You are having to make decisions on a daily basis, right? So anything that you do in the real world is useful, right? And so is participating in competitions where you get to prove yourself, right? Otherwise, all the learning would be theoretical. So try to practice what you learn, and each of them are opportunities to problem solving. There's a question from Prachi on what would be the advice to a law student looking to do an MBA. I think that's a great route. I think to have a legal background and to do an MBA, I think that's a great background to have. Lawyers are far more at the center of business in US, right? You have a lot of lawyers in the corporate law area, right, working on M&A and so on, right? I think if you have the legal background and an MBA, I think you are in a great position. I know, for example, like our CEO, he hired an MBA with a law degree. This guy went to I think one of the national law schools, and then he did an MBA from IIM Ahmedabad. So he was hired as an executive assistant, right? Which really gives an opportunity to look at, every aspect of the business and really shadow the CEO, right? So I think that's a great thing to do, right? If you're keen on business. Otherwise, being a lawyer itself is a pretty good career to have. So, you should be doing it only if you think you want to be on the business side of things. There's a question, what is the eligibility for MBA in analytics? Currently, we offer analytics programs as standalone programs, which take in students with every background, right? As long as they're completed undergraduate. I don't think there are any prerequisites. In our full-time programs, we have analytics as a specialization, right? Again, there is no specific undergraduate degree that is required. Students from every stream can be part of that, and we cover things from the basics, starting from statistics. Statistics is really the foundation for analytics, right? Earlier you would only talk about statistics. Now people have taken a couple of steps further and are doing it as part of a larger area of data sciences, because the amount of data has really scaled up in the last few years, right? So for that you need to utilize computing power, which means you have to use machine learning and so on to deal with big data, right? But the foundation still is in statistics, right? So as long as you're comfortable with numbers, analyzing patterns, getting insights out of data, I think that's the most important quality required, not really some kind of degree. There's a question from Manit on how can one draft a statement of purpose? What all should one cover, right? So I think SOP may differ from institution to institution. I think the institutions typically clarify what you should be covering or what you should be addressing, right? For example, at Great Lakes, we asked about why you think you should be part of the Pgdm class, right? In that case, you should talk about obviously what you have done so far, what skills you bring to the table, right? What experiences you bring to the table, right? That makes it worthwhile for the rest of the class, right? To engage with you, right? That's what we look for. I know for Stanford, I think the question is what matters to you and why? What's the most important thing for you, right? That's a very, let's say, vague question, ambiguous question, but again, that only forces you to think more. And there's no one answer that would be right or wrong, right? I think it matters how well you are able to bring out your own experiences and channelize them into your future goals, right? Now, if you say that I want to do an MBA because, or I want to be part of this program because I want to accomplish XYZ, then you should be able to justify that by talking about your past experiences, which have brought you to that position where you're looking forward to accomplishing these goals, and how this program would be the booster in that mission, right? So you need to tie it out well, and also it should read like a good story at the end of the day, right? You should be able to tie out these things. It's not about listing A, B, C, D, E, F, G, right? It's not about putting in 6 bullet points. It's about telling a compelling story in terms of what's your journey and how this program is going to help you realize your goals. So definitely give some examples and all. I think that's what makes things interesting. Again, it's about you, and it should be authentic. So many people I know in the past, look at what their friends have written, what other successful applicants have written. But your experience is different from everybody else. So you know what others write is not what you can write. So please be authentic. That's something schools are increasingly looking for. Quick check, am I audible?
Yes, yes, you are.
Okay, because I had a couple of, I think one person was checking about that. Okay, there's a question from Preksha. She's doing BTech in mechanical engineering, but wants to do a business related course for masters in Germany. Is it possible? Frankly, I'm not an expert on education in Germany, but I know that it's been fairly welcoming of international students, and the cost of education is also relatively low in Germany because a lot of it is state funded. But I don't think any business course anywhere, right, as far as the standard MBA is concerned, requires people to have background A or background B, right? In fact, most business schools across the world look for diversity. I've been part of many GMAT conferences. Great Lakes is a member school of GMAT, which conducts GMAT, and I attend the annual conference every year. The theme has been increasing diversity. So people want all schools, whether it's in US, Europe, India, everywhere, we are looking for diversity. Indian schools typically till about 10-15 years back hardly had any diversity. In my class of 120 in MDI, I think we barely had like about 18 female members, so that's about like 15%. In Great Lakes, this year, or rather last year, in the Pgdm class, we had like 50% female candidates for the first time, right? And this year also it's about 40% there. In the Pgpm, which is a one-year program, it's slightly lesser, it's around 30%, where we are looking at experienced candidates, right? And the fact is that almost everyone is looking for having a more interesting mix in the class. We are increasingly looking for having people with experience, so that they bring in diverse perspectives and the learning in the classroom can be richer. So don't worry about your undergraduate degree. Doesn't really matter. What really matters is what management qualities you can demonstrate, what you have accomplished so far, right? As I said, nobody's just looking for theoretical learning in business school, right? So it cannot be just based on what degree you have done. So in fact, most of what you have learned in engineering may not be useful, right, as far as your MBA is concerned. But what you have done as part of extracurriculars may be more useful, right? So don't worry about what undergrad you have done, because that's something you can't change. It's what it is. Focus more on what you want to do from now in terms of channelizing whatever you have done into something that makes sense, and ties in with what your future goals are, right? And more important, take up initiatives now if you haven't done so far. There's a question from Asta on what do B schools look for in scholarship candidates. I think there is. I don't think it's something significantly different in terms of what B schools look for in overall and for scholarship candidates. But typically, it differs from business school to business school. But typically, they'll obviously offer scholarships to those candidates who they want to be better represented in the class, right? And that would change from institution to institution. In some schools, it could be, they are trying to give scholarship to attract maybe students with a high percentile, right? High GMAT score. In some schools, it could be about increasing diversity from a certain region, right? In US, they have affirmative policies. So that's based on your background, race, many different things, right? But typically at Great Lakes, we have merit scholarships and also diversity scholarships, right? And for diversity, merit scholarships obviously looks at academic background and work experience, and whether somebody has had an overall outstanding track record. For diversity scholarships, we are also looking at people who are underrepresented in the batch, right? It could be some of it is weightage given to gender, but it's also about bringing in people with non-typical backgrounds, right? So we definitely like to have more, let's say, lawyers in the class, right, or doctors in the class, right? So but definitely we may not give diversity scholarships to have more engineers in the class, right? So it varies from school to school, but typically it would be either merit or diversity based. There's a question from candidate on the Great Lakes having tie-ups with the universities abroad. Would that lead to exposure to students in Great Lakes, and whether it's 1 year here and 1 year abroad? No, we don't have this twinning 1 year here and 1 year there. But as I said, in case of, let's say, University of Bordeaux, right, students complete the 1 year PGPM at Great Lakes, right? Then selected students go to Bordeaux, spend one trimester there, and they get a additional degree, right? A second degree from University of Bordeaux, which is fully accredited. It's a triple accredited university, public university, right? So you actually have 2 degrees there, and more importantly, you have a certain exposure and different perspectives. Again, I think that just makes the learning richer, right? So it's not like what you learn at Great Lakes is not enough. It's just that certain things come by being exposed to a different culture and diversity of thoughts. So that's one. And as I said, we have exchange programs with some of the schools. So yeah, so those are opportunities where you can benefit from. Second is also we get a lot of faculty, as I said, from many international schools, and that also, while everyone may not be able to travel abroad, but getting those perspectives from the world's best faculty while you're right at Great Lakes, that itself, I think, makes a program experience far richer. It's a question from Shubh Pratik Singh on my views on Masters in Management programs. So, over the years, at least in the West, I think in Europe especially, there is a trend that more people are looking for Masters in Management, right? And I think that's something that in India at least, right, all your standard 2-year programs are typically kind of a Masters in Management programs because these are taking freshers, right? In fact, as per the AMBA criteria, programs which take people who are freshers are considered Masters in Management, even all our Pgdm programs, and programs which take people with experience are considered MBA programs as per the accreditation criteria, right? So again, it's I don't have a specific view on that. I think it's about what individually people are looking for. They're just like MBA programs, they're great programs in Masters in Management, some which are not great, but overall they don't have the same level of recognition as flagship MBA programs, right? So it's fine if that's something that you want to straight away pursue, but and want to specialize in, let's say, finance or marketing, one of the areas, right? And nothing against any of them, but I think in terms of the prestige and recognition, MBA programs are generally considered the flagship. So a question from Purnima on whether technical internships help me get into business schools. The answer is, it's not directly relevant if you have done a technical internship, unless you have actually demonstrated that you have certain problem-solving skills, right? See, any work in any organization has a business angle, right? There are qualities that you demonstrate irrespective of the industry you are working on or irrespective of the project you are working on, right? Even let's say somebody is just coding, right? Most Indian graduates end up in IT, right? So your coding skills may not be relevant in business school, right? Maybe that's what you do for 80-90% of the time, but that remaining 10-20% of the time you are still, gaining management skills. So you're exposed to that, right? You're working with your team, you are maybe working directly with the clients, handling their queries, solving that, right? Or finding solutions, managing a project, and so on, right? So the technical part may not be directly useful, but the fact that you've been exposed to a real world situation, right? That itself means that there'll be certain aspects, certain skills that you learn, and that's what you can communicate, right, to make it more relevant for business schools. There's a question from Noor Mohammed on which course in MBA is good to do if one wants to pursue his career in IT. See, IT is like any other industry. At the end of the day, these are industries. So, and each industry would have all kinds of functions, right? Any company would require people in finance. It would require people in sales and marketing. It would require people in operations. Having said that, in IT, project management is a key area, and so is sales. Sales means business to business sales, right? These are like two very significant areas. Of course, they have large finance teams as well, and they'll have requirements in human resources as well. It's very important because TCS has like 5 lakh employees, right? That's crazy, right? Managing that kind of scale. So you need smart people in HR as well, right? That actually becomes a very, very critical area. So I think more than the industry, I think you should look at what would be the function that you're more keen on, right? And because many of these skills can be used in different industries. And a lot of you may be thinking, what do I specialize in? I think the answer is like, find out something that you think you'd be good at, right? Because each area would require certain set of skills more than the others. In fact, you need all the management skills, but in certain areas, like for example, if you're in marketing, you need to have good communication skills, right? If you're in finance, you should be comfortable with numbers. You should be able to build financial models. You should be meticulous. You need to know the financial rules, all of that, right? So see what actually interests you, what appeals to you, and take that up more than what is more popular, because what is good for somebody else may not be good for you. And it's important that you identify what you are good at so that you actually are successful, right? Irrespective of which area you go into, if you are successful, that is a key outcome compared to just being an average guy and not enjoying what you do. So question from Pratibhan, whether the 1-year Pgdm is considered as a proper MBA when it concerns jobs or salary. I think it's completely a mindset issue where people think that a 1-year or a 2-year actually are different, right, in terms of their recognition or how they are perceived, right? Just ask yourself a question, why does a company care whether you have done a 1-year MBA or a 2-year MBA? Are they going to benefit from you spending 2 years? Right? What they care about is, once you join the job, are you going to deliver or not deliver? Right? Companies are not doing charity. They only are hiring, smart MBAs, paying them a lot simply because they think they can deliver and add value, right? So it doesn't really matter whether somebody has done a 1-year or a 2-year program. What matters is whether they had great learning experience, right? In a 1-year time frame, it's obviously a tighter schedule, right? But on the other hand, most 1-year programs take experienced students. So you have a class which has people full of diverse real world experiences. So the learning in a way is actually far more richer, right? And second, your opportunity cost is significantly lower. And I'm saying this as a school which offers both a 2-year and 1-year programs, that our 2-year program comprises more of freshers and young professionals, where 1 year comprises more people with experience. Obviously they get higher salaries, right? And not once has anybody ever said that they are less prepared than the 2 years. In fact, they are more prepared than the 2 years candidates, because of their experience and all. They get hired at a higher level. If you see across the board, whether it's even in IIMs, they have an executive program that's 1 year, and students get selected at higher level, right? So I think that's something that you should keep in mind, that it's not really the duration of the program, but what matters is what you get out of it, right? In terms of your ability to demonstrate your skills in the real world. Consider a class full of freshers, right? The learning to an extent is not as realistic or applied. Most people have their first exposure during their summer internship after the first year. So the first year is theoretical learning, right? And overall, if you see the duration, it's only 17-18 months of the course. And no 2-year program is really more than 20 months at the maximum, whereas a 1-year program would be about 11-12 months, and a 2-year program would be typically 17-18 months. So it's just compressing the time frame, and these days, people care and companies care about doing things in less time, right? Everything has to be faster, right? You want to order something, you want it fast, right? On a Swiggy or a Zomato, you want it in 30 minutes, right? On Amazon, you want it in 1 day, right? Companies want to grow in on a monthly basis, right? All the startups, right, they talk about month on month growth, right? So when the world is looking at accelerating, one should not be in this mindset that longer is better, right? If you go with the same mindset into your company, you're unlikely to compete well. So I think if you can do more in less time, I think there is a value to that. And obviously, in real terms, your opportunity cost decreases. You are earning the second year. In the second year, you are gaining valuable post MBA experience, and possibly you can get a increment, promotion. There's so many possibilities once you are in the industry. So question from Shubh Pratik Singh. I have completed my bachelor's in geology and wanted to pursue management studies. And whether MIM, Masters in Management, is a good option. So Shubh Pratik, I think you have an interesting background. But I think, as I said earlier, also there was a question on this. There are very good Masters in Management programs. So if you get into a good one, you can do that. You can look at all the business schools in India are ready to take fresh graduates as part of the 2-year programs. So I think what's more important is you get into a good school, right? Getting into a good school ensures that you have a good learning experience. So whether you do an MBA or MIM, I think if you can do that from a good school, that's going to help you in the long term. Question from Aman on whether somebody from a tier 2, tier 3 engineering college in India get admitted into top schools like Harvard Business School or Sloan. I think the answer. It's extremely tough, right? Because if we look at the criteria that schools look at, right, one is your track record and performance, right? So if you're not in a tier 1 school, that means there is already a handicap, right? So you obviously have to demonstrate something extraordinary in other areas, right? In terms of what work you have done, or extracurricular initiatives you have taken, voluntary activities you have done, right? Because then you need to showcase how you are better than so many other candidates who are applying from, let's say, tier 1 schools, right? Second, you may not fit into the diversity criteria based on your, being a engineer from India. I think that's the most common bucket. That's the most competitive space, right? So again, you need to see how you can bring certain diversity to the table, how you can showcase how, what value you can add to the class. So that's a tough question, but you need to figure out how to answer that. So there's a question from Shashwat Thakkar. Can you tell us more about Associate Universities of Great Lakes and how we can extend our one-year Pgdm in foreign universities? So Shashwat, many of our alumni actually have went to the US, have done PhDs there. In fact, I think one of the highest ranked professors in ISP, Professor Arunachalam, is a Great Lakes 1-year PGPM graduate. He went to US, did his PhD, and then came back and joined ISP, right? So you can always do a PhD after doing the PGPM, because what business schools or any university would look at for PhD program in US is having 12 plus 4 years of formal education, which means you're 12 plus 4 years of beyond 12th. So as long as you do that, you are eligible to get into any PhD program. And obviously, if you have done that, done a MBA from a premier school, that's always going to help you. There's a question from Shirshendu Bharadwaj. He's a mentor in Niti Aayog, advisor of ESL, IITs and Hindu College, brand ambassador of a smart city project for incubation, and over 3,000 e-drives in India. All these activities will help in admissions abroad. Where should I apply for USA or Canada? I think what you say are quite impressive. So that definitely would help. Anything that you have done, anything that you have accomplished in any area, right, is helpful, right? And what you have mentioned is quite impressive, right? So I think whether you should apply in USA or Canada should be a personal call, right? Obviously, till a couple of years back or a few years back, USA was the primary destination, the de facto destination, right? But thanks to the policies of let's say previous president, US president, I think there has been a shift towards Canada primarily for immigration purposes, right? So I think that's something that you should look at in terms of what makes sense for you, because different people would have different destinations in mind. What are the good business competitions one can participate in? I think almost every business school conducts business competitions. Business magazines conduct them. You have a lot of corporates who conduct business competitions. So one site you can go to is a site called Dare to Compete, right? It's usually a repository of most ongoing business competitions. So you'll stay connected with what's happening, and then you can choose what to participate in. Question from Naveen on my view on deferred MBA offered by USA universities. I think that's really just a opportunity for those who have certain constraints, right? So whether you do the MBA now or defer it by a year, I think that's more based on your personal priorities than anything to do with the school. So, right, if you are through the admissions process, but for some reason are not able to participate this year, I think that's an opportunity you have. Otherwise, that really doesn't change your experience, right? Whenever you do the MBA. There's a question from Guneet on on the admission process, if there's a student from a premier institute such as BITS, but with average academics and great leadership experience versus a student with similar work experience and great acads from an average college, right? I think obviously this differs from college to college, right? Some institutions play more emphasis on academics. They want high CGPAs. But having said that, if you are from a premier school, you do get the benefit of the brand because people understand that the competitive level is higher, right? So even if you are average in a premier school, I think you'll be reasonably well off as compared to somebody who has good academics but from a tier 2 school. And second, and more importantly, if you have demonstrated leadership qualities, I think that is actually far more valuable than even your academics, because that's what is relevant for you to be a successful business leader, right? If you have demonstrated those qualities, I think, and I think that's a more valuable evidence compared to pure academics, right? Your engineering knowledge is less important compared to your ability to solve problems in the real world. There's a question on from Dhanush on which university is the best in UK for MBA. I think for that, I'd suggest just look at the rankings, right? I'm sure the ranking agencies have done a lot more research than me. So you can look at Times Higher Ed, which is published out of UK, right? There are many good business schools, right? LBS is obviously the top school, right? For MBA in UK, that's the most prestigious, but there are many other good schools. There's a question from Hemant. Does an executive MBA from a top institute add value in their career? And he doesn't want to leave the job. Absolutely, it does, right? So if you really look at what an MBA does, it basically helps you learn a very diverse set of things in a short period of time, right? Which you may not be able to do while pursuing your job on a daily basis, right? If you have to learn about finance, you have to learn about marketing, you have to learn about project management, right? Very few people have the opportunity to learn about all of this at work in a short period of time. Yes, you may learn about it over a career of 30 years, right? Once you rotate between different roles, get to senior management. But in most cases where you don't even do an MBA, right? If you are a high performer and your companies recognize you, that they themselves may sponsor you for an executive MBA or in advanced management programs which are shorter duration, right? It just helps that when you get into a good school, when you have professors who can share their perspectives, right? That really opens your thought process, right? It allows you to connect what you have done so far and think about how you can improve, on what you have done so far, right? And how do you look at problems from different perspectives, right? And so I think you have, if you look at the most top CEOs or even bankers, many of them would have done multiple management programs, right? Apart from what they do in the beginning, there could be mid-career interventions in terms of advanced management programs and so on, right? So it is absolutely valuable. Now, if you want to look at it as something where in an executive MBA you don't have placements, right? That's a very myopic view, right? You don't need a college to provide placements. You're already there. You're already working in the industry for many years. You already found multiple jobs, right? What the MBA does is allow you to accelerate your career, right? It allows you to change your perspectives, and that's how you become more valuable for the future, whether it's with the current employer or any future employers. Having said that, again, there are high quality programs and there are programs which may not be that high quality. So it's important for you to choose a program, right? At Great Lakes, for working executives, we have a program called the Postgraduate Executive Program in Management, the PGXPM, right? It's consistently a very highly rated program, has CXOs as part of the class, multiple alumni are in senior roles in both domestic and multinational companies. So you can definitely explore about it. But I would say that if your goal is to be in the management space, an executive MBA is always an option you can consider seriously. So I think the last question on how much experience is required for a Pgdm in analytics from Great Lakes. So we don't, as I said, have a specific analytics Pgdm. We have full-time programs in Pgdm and PGPM for freshers and people with experience, right? There is no prerequisite for analytics as a specialization, right? Anybody who joins these programs can opt for analytics, right? So that's not something that is dependent on experience. As I said, what matters is whether you are comfortable with data analysis, right? So if I think that's the skill base, right? These are all applied areas, right? And in applied areas, what matters is whether you are able to do certain things or not, right? More than whether you had a certain undergraduate degree or a certain experience. What matters is whether you can learn these concepts and are good at problem solving. So again, I think the focus should be more on identifying your strengths, whether you're somebody who's good with numbers, so maybe and analyzing data, finding those insights out of it. So if that excites you, I think you can take up analytics. If you find that daunting, maybe best to avoid it. I think we are done with the questions, unless I missed any of them. I think there's a question from Neha, and she has completed her PhD from IIT Bombay and has 4 years of research and teaching experience and wants to now apply for a Pgdm. Neha, that's quite impressive. You could be possibly on the, you're already teaching, so I don't know why you would specifically want to do an MBA, but I think it may be best to do actually an executive MBA. And the reason is, you'd be in a cohort which has a certain level of experience, right? So rather than being in a class with, let's say, fresh graduates or with those with 2-3 years of experience. So I think I'd suggest that if you are keen on getting into a management side, pick up what is like an executive program which has a rich peer group more than anything else. Right, because you already invested so much time in your PhD, and I would consider a PhD as as something that's at a higher level than even an MBA, right? Typically, a lot of people do their PhDs after they do their masters, right, or an MBA. So I think you're already at a position where you should not be looking at let's say a regular MBA program, but one designed for executives. So I guess that's all for now. And if you guys have any more questions, feel free to reach out to me. I'll drop in my email ID in the chat box. I think there's one last question just came in. So candidate with the BCom in actuarial science, working as an actuarial analyst for the past 2 years. How do I link actuarial science with MBA? Yeah, I think it's a perfectly valid background to have, right? You are obviously looking at numbers here, right? You're looking at statistics, you're looking at probability. That's how you you look at insurance premiums and all, right? So I think you have a perfectly good background to do an MBA, right? If you have strong data skills. right? And analytical skills, that's a starting point. I mean, if you really look at it, nobody's really at an advantage or a disadvantage, just not like engineers are any better qualified, right? This is stereotypical myth about somehow engineers being better qualified at getting into business schools. I think that's not really relevant, except for the fact that, yes, let's say in a GMAT, they may be slightly better inclined towards the quantitative section. So otherwise, I know people, non-engineers, who have scored a lot more than most engineers. So it doesn't really matter. I think your undergraduate actually doesn't matter. What matters is, what are your qualities and, strengths and weaknesses. So I think anybody can do an MBA program. There's no prerequisite as such. What matters again is skills, and second is, were you actually good at whatever you did, right? So look at what you've done so far and identify, your strengths and what is that you can actually showcase, right? It's just not good enough to say, I did a BTech or I did a BCom, right? That's there in your application form up there, right? There's not much to actually discuss there, right? What matters is, what have you done with that, right? So as long as that's impressive, that's what is going to interest the, business school recruiters. So Vaishali, can we wrap up?
Yeah, let's do that. Thank you everyone for being a great audience. And thank you, Gautam, for taking out time to answer the questions in so much detail. If any of you would like to connect with Gautam, he's left his contact details in the chat box. So please feel free to connect with him. If you'd like to connect with us at Jamboree for, say, a demo class on the GRE or GMAT or an evaluation of your profile, leave your number in the chat box and, we'll call you up. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Have a nice evening.